I've had many people ask me how I solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Now, solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded is not as hard as you might think, but don't let that trick you because it's not super easy. But it's definitely doable, and I will teach you the beginner's method on how to do it in this video. And if you pay attention and just work at it, you should be able to do it in under 5 minutes with a lot of practice. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you a solving method of the Rubik's Cube called Old Pachman, which pretty much goes is you figure out where this piece goes, you set it up to here, do an algorithm to swap it and undo it, and that will solve a piece like this. And for corners, you find where this goes, set that up to here, do an algorithm, and it's in its spot right here, and we'll just use that logic to solve the entire cube. Okay, to start off, you're going to make sure you have to know 3 certain algorithms, but for right now, it's only 1. I'm going to be showing you what is called a T-perm, and if you do 2-look OLL, or 2-look PLL, I mean, you will know this already. So here it goes. Okay, so that's the only algorithm you need to know for now. And now you will notice that when doing this algorithm, notice how this is orange and this is red. These 2 pieces will swap. And why we do this algorithm to swap it rather than just a U2 is that this swaps these pieces without affecting any other corners almost. Well, except it does swap these 2 corners, and I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so this solving method is pretty basic. First thing we need to do is locate 2 pieces, and we'll call them the target and the buffer. Now, this is the buffer right here, which is going to be UR is the name of this piece, and this over here is the target, UL, specifically this sticker and this sticker. I have taught this method on this YouTube channel before, but it was kind of a confusing video, so here's just a better explanation. So this piece we'll swap to here after doing a T-perm algorithm. So what we need to do is figure out where this piece goes and set that up to here with setup moves. And how that's going to work is we're going to find a way to do it that doesn't affect either of these 3 pieces. So how we're going to do that is see that this sticker needs to go to here. So we will move that to the bottom, move it over and up, and it's set up to here. Do the swap and undo those setup moves. And now the piece has been solved. Now this can be confusing at first if you're not good with setup moves. So finding the most efficient setup move is very rarely more than 3. There's only a couple cases. So now this piece, yellow and orange. We need to find the yellow and orange spot down here. And now we need to do moves that don't move these pieces that set it up here. And this one's really easy. We can just do a U2 or L2, and then we can swap, undo the setup moves, and it's solved. So same thing for this piece. This piece needs to go here. So we could do it like this, but instead of slice moves, it's just smoother to do wide moves like this. Just don't affect any of these 3 pieces. So if this needs to go here, we will set this up like that, do the swap, and undo the setup moves. Now this piece is solved on its own, and if we solve the buffer on accident, then that's a bit annoying, but it's not a problem. So all you need to do is just swap with an unsolved piece. Luckily, this piece is unsolved, so we don't have to do any setups because this is already in its spot. So we can do the algorithm, and we're already done. Now find where this piece goes. It goes here. Set it up. Undo the setup. This piece goes here, and now when they're targets like here, they're kind of hard to do. So what you have to do is kind of move the piece to the bottom, and then over and up, and then it's pretty simple. Do the swap, undo setup, like that. And we're just gonna do that for the rest of the pieces real quick. And now real quick, this is the hardest case, so I'm just gonna show you how it works. If you ever have to swap this piece, you move it in front, bring it down, and then over, and then turn it up like that. Undo the setup moves. Okay, so once you've done every single piece, you should have all of the edges solved. Okay, so real quick, we need to show you an algorithm to do the next part. This is very similar to Y-perm, except you don't do the F move at the beginning. So it goes like this. Now, using that logic, we will proceed to solve the rest of the cube. So it's going to be the exact same concept, just slightly different. So we take this sticker over here, which is going to be LUB, or LBU. It's this one, this sticker. And you got to find out where it goes. It goes right here. Okay, now what you have to do is you have to set up this piece to here without moving any of these three pieces up here. So how we're going to do this one is just F. It sets it up. We're going to do the algorithm, undo the setup. Now it's in its solved state. You will notice that these two pieces have flipped with each other, but you're not going to worry about that right now. You can just ignore it. Move on to the next piece. So this is yellow, blue, red. We've got to find yellow, blue, red down here. So we set it up. In this case, it's also really easy. We can just do D to move it here. Do the swap. Undo setup, and now it's solved. Find our next piece. Here it is. So we need to set it up to here without messing up these pieces. So what we can do is F R prime, like that. Do the algorithm. Undo setup. Now it's solved. This piece will be here. We can simply do F prime. Undo setup. This piece needs to go here. So we can pretty much just go R prime, D prime. No, that's, yeah, R prime, D prime. Like that. Now it's here. Undo setup. This piece. This is the buffer piece. It's the same piece that belongs in the spot. So we replace it with any unsolved piece. Undo setup. Find where this goes. For this one, we can do D, F prime. Undo setup. Find where this goes. It goes here. Set it up. Do the swap and undo setup moves. And now you have a solved cube. So that is just one simple method to solve the Rubik's Cube. Well, now that you know how to solve the cube and the method we use for beginner blindfolded, now we're going to have to figure out the lettering scheme for the Rubik's Cube. Okay, so how this works is each piece has a name that corresponds with a letter. So this piece would be A, this piece is B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X. Very simple. So you start with A here, and then you go over to orange, then green, then red, then blue, then yellow. And then you just do that in the entire order. And that's very simple. And then the same thing for the corners. So if this edge was A, then this corner is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X. And then with a little bit of practice, you can have that memorized and down pretty fluently. When we have a scrambled cube, we can use those letters to figure out how to solve it, because that just pretty much tells us the solution. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a sheet of paper real quick, and now we're going to hold white up, green front, and look at this piece, because this is for edges. So if this edge is white and blue, figure out where white and blue goes, that's here. We're going to remember that this is A. So we can write down A. Now figure out where this piece goes. It goes here. This is the buffer piece. So what you'd actually do for this is you don't memorize a letter for this. You'd actually pick a random unsolved piece. So I'm going to pick D because that's the easiest one. So this is D. So A, D. Now we're going to see where this goes. This actually goes here, and this piece is R. Now this piece is C. This piece is O. And this piece is J. This piece is D. Wait, that's the buffer piece that we already set up. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do J, and then we're not going to do D here. We are going to find the next unsolved piece if it exists. Maybe it doesn't exist, but in this case it does, and we can just use X. I do X because that's another easy one to set up, and it's another unsolved piece. If you do a piece that you've already solved, you're going to mess the whole thing up. So X goes to in goes to L, L goes to U goes to, W, and W goes to G, which is our buffer again. And now that we've covered every single piece on the entire Rubik's Cube, this should solve all the edges. And now we can do the exact same thing for the corners. So this corner piece will go here. Oh my gosh, it goes here. So this is I. I'm gonna write down I. And this piece, this is the buffer piece, so we're gonna move on to the next unsolved piece. We're gonna do V because that's the easiest one, no setup moves. So V, and now M, N, O. This is the buffer piece that we already did. Gotta find another unsolved piece. We'll do an easy one. U, H, and this brings me back to L. And with that, we have covered every single piece on the Rubik's Cube. Now, if we follow this, we should be able to solve the whole thing, assuming we did it right. So, first letter is A. I'm going to solve A. D. I fumbled and messed up something in the memorization, but that's because of what we call parity. And that's where I went wrong in the solve, is because we have parity, and I'll show you how to fix that. If we didn't have parity, this would be solved. So, parity. That happens when you have an odd number of letters to memorize. So you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. So it's odd numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, which means we did this wrong because we weren't ready for parity. So the way to know for parity is very simple. You need to memorize your letters in pairs. W, P. So we'll write that down. And that would be all of our pieces done for edges, except for this one, which these are hard to notice sometimes. This is a switched piece because it never comes up in a cycle, but it is very important not to miss these because then you'll have a flipped piece at the edge. So whenever you have a flipped piece at the edge, you just need to memorize one tile and the other tile. So we have A and Q. A, Q, right there. So this is our memorization for the edges. You notice that after doing our edges memorization, we have an odd number of letters. And that's very easy to determine if you determine in pairs, because then the last one won't have a pair because it will be alone. So when we have an odd number, then we have what we call parity. And parity is just a simple algorithm. It is actually an R-perm. So if you know full PLL or some of it, and a little more than 2 look, then you would know this algorithm. So this is how R-perm goes. And always remember that last move. The last move is very important. So whenever you have an odd number of letters in your memorization, then you will have to do parity. You will have to do parity after you solve the edges. So now Now that we have that done, we are going to move on to memorizing the corners. Now that we have that, we have solved every single corner piece at this point. And if your memorization, they have to both either be even number or odd numbers. They're both an odd number, so that means that we very likely did our memorization correctly. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to solve it. So since we have an odd numbers, of course we have parity and we have to remember that. So now from here, you shouldn't have to look at the cube, you just need these letters. So we have W for edges, we're going to do our W. And again, since there's an odd number, we're going to do our parity algorithm after we solve the edges. And now we're going to move on to corners. And oh my gosh, look at that. We missed a corner that needs to be rotated. That's something you have to be very, very careful of. Because, see, look, I completely missed that, and I'm not bad at this. So we have to rotate this corner. Now, the easiest way to do this in memorization is find the yellow of this piece, or if it's on the top row, then we'd find the white. But in this case, we'll find the yellow, and then see where the yellow needs to go is here. So this would be LU. So we would write down LU in our memorization, if we did our memorization right. So we'll solve L, and then U. And then we have a solved cube. So you have to make sure, this is a really good example of how not to get things right. So if you get it wrong, if you even have just a twisted corner in your memorization, then the solve will not count. So real quick, some tips on memorization. Start by memorizing your corners. So how I would do this is I would memorize my corners like this. Q, W. Now, I would memorize those letter pairs. I would memorize a word that corresponds with it. So, QW, Chihi. Now, that doesn't sound like Q or W, but Chihi is a Rubik's Cube brand, and it's spelled Q-I-W-I. So, I would remember Chihi being QW. And so, W would go to J, and J goes to U. Jew, like a Jew from Jerusalem. So, Chihi Jew. Or I would memorize a sentence, and this in my mind would start as Chihi was made by Jews. And now here is buffer. So instead of solving this, we're going to go to the next unsolved. The easiest is V to I. So I could remember something like Chihi was made by Jew supervisors, VI for visors. Chihi was made by Jew supervisors, and then QRS to V. And that would be most of our memorization. That would be all of our memorization. So we have SV at the end. So Chihi was made by Jew supervisors who saved, or something like that. Then I could memorize that, and that could be our corners. And then from here, I do the edges. I would just only use the words because this is faster and you don't have to hold it for as long. And so I would do the edges. So this would start with V, T, vet, I, Q, inquire, vet, inquire, dear, L, S, lace, vet, inquire, dear, lace. I know it's spelled with a C, but that helps me for memorization. X, K. Now, for X, this is one of J-Perm's strategies. You can, instead of memorizing X, you can memorize SH. So SHK would be shake. And this is buffer. So then we are either done or there's some unsolved pieces that we need to fix. In this case, we are actually done. So we can go on to solve this cube now that we have everything. And since we did not memorize that there are odd numbers, so we're going to have no parity, so that's going to go like this. Vet, inquire, dear, lace, shake, move on to corners, and we're going to do chihi, was made by Jews. That's not the right algorithm. Let's not mess that up. Was made by Jew supervisors, so VI. And then who saved, SV. And after that, your Rubik's Cube is solved. So that's pretty much how to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. To practice, I would do a lot of writing down your letters and working from there, and then you could practice your memorization based off that or in other ways. So there you go, guys, how to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more just like this. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.